the what I sent last week was how to set the what's the word I'm looking for? To make
The
sure
orientation.
Thank you. That's the word. To set the orientation such that you can see, you can read the stuff easily.
Well, some of them you
That is
scan
very
are,
hard.
Whoa. I'm sorry. Wait, everybody, one at a time. I'm very sorry. What?
No, I just found it very, very hard, and I couldn't read it.
yeah.
Okay,
And
so
some of them are vertical. You're able
right.
to scan some
Okay,
of
so the
them.
vertical one, let me show you. Okay, so here is, give me a second. All right, so here we see these are the words in a vertical orientation, right? Does everyone see it?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I wouldn't call that vertical. Vertical would be lined up so you can read it. Anyway.
What I mean, this is in portrait mode.
Yes.
Right?
Portrait.
It's in
Yes.
portrait, and we need it to be landscape, right?
Right.
So
Accepted.
what you do is you go here you have to make sure that this gets opened in Adobe. If it's not open in Adobe, then you're going to have trouble. So that if you have a specific question about how to get it to open in Adobe, then I'm happy to address that in another context. But that's the first thing. You do need to have it open in Adobe. You go to View. You see where I've got my cursor now. You go to Rotate View. Okay. You choose clockwise or counterclockwise. In this case, clockwise will be accurate, and then it goes to the right orientation. And now
Thank you.
Click on View.
I'm sorry, Ellen.
You click on View, Rotation View, and then clockwise. So 3 clicks.
Right.
3 clicks.
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, you gotta have to adjust it because sometimes they get sent the other way. I will try to the best of my ability to send them in the correct orientation. The problem is that I scan them at the copy machine on the first floor, and I can't check the orientation of them until I'm usually back in my office on the 9th floor. So it's a little bit, to go back and redo it is a little bit of a procedure.
Where's Rotate View? I clicked View, but there's no Rotate View.
It's the very first one, Ellen.
Yeah, and then clockwise.
And then, well, clockwise or counterclockwise, depending on what the original is.
Jim,
Yeah.
do people in the CCB buildings have the ability to send a file to a common printer downstairs?
No, but what I'll do after this session, I'm going to make copies of the various texts, and I will and people can. I will leave them. I don't know where I'm going to leave them. I'll leave them somewhere, and people can come and get them.
That'd be great. I'm not finding a way to open it with Adobe on my computer.
Yeah. Okay.
Download Adobe, it's free. Download Adobe.
I have that, but it's not giving me the option to open it.
Yeah, so what you do for that is go into the folder. You've got to go into the file folder where that thing is located. You select the file you want to open. I'll show you. Can you see that?
Not yet.
Can you see my files open?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, growly.
Whoever's dog is barking has unmuted my dogs. Okay, here's mine. Okay, so say for the sake of argument, I wanted to open up Thank God for the Poets in Adobe, right? Right-click it. You have, and in mine, it says open with Adobe Acrobat Reader DC. But in others, it will show open with 3 dots. And you push on open with, and that will give you the menu of the options on your computer for opening a PDF. And there's a way to change what the default is, but that's above and beyond my capacity to tell you now. But Mayim, if you want me to stop by and show you how, I'm happy to.
How do you open the document after you do clockwise to read it?
Already open, you know?
It's already opened, yeah.
It'll just print on the screen?
It'll just be on the screen, exactly.
Okay.
All right. So now that we've exhausted ourselves with tech,
I needed to just say something about that. I found that the font is so tiny and so shadowy. It's just so impossible to read. And
Yeah.
I don't know how to make it darker. And I tried just redoing, printing it over the same sheet over and over, and it didn't work.
right. What I would recommend, Ellen, is not, if you have trouble reading it once it's printed out, I would say don't try to read it from this. Just read it on the screen, because you can make it infinitely large on the screen.
Okay.
So if you don't mind reading things on the screen,
How do you get into the first page of that? What do you do to get into the first page of that?
you scroll down.
Scroll down?
Yeah.
Oh, you just scroll down.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's get started. So this was not the one I wanted. I wanted to start with. I thought we would start sort of with the one that I hold on. I thought we would start with Milton Friedman, because he's the first in order, and gives sort of the, sort of a more encyclopedia style definition of all this sort of thing. So let's start. I was going to talk about the blessing.
Highfalutin.
I'm sorry.
He was not writing for the common person.
He was writing. Milton Friedman was writing for.
No, not Milton Friedman. He's an economist. Milton Steinberg.
Milton Steinberg, right? Milton Steinberg.
Yes.
Milton Steinberg is writing for the educated layperson, what used to be called the educated layperson, right? There is an assumption of a sort of a educational background that writers in the 40s and 50s had.
Yes, it was definitely dated.
Right. We don't write that way anymore.
It depends. If you're trying to intimidate people, you do. And
But
But you died very young, though.
if you're trying to bring them in, you don't.
Well, but also, which is to say that he does not mean to be intimidating, right? He has no intention of being intimidating. It's just that our way of reading has changed. Our way of what's intimidating, what's not, who's this sort of thing, right? So, but
having read that and then having read Art Green, it's quite a difference in the style.
Right. And and Art writes in a very Art writes in his own very high level, but he's a lot more approachable. At
He's
least
current.
I'm sorry.
He's current as opposed to Rabbi Steinberg, who died many, many years ago.
Right, exactly.
Young age, very young age.
Well, the reason that I gave you the Steinberg, right, is because he offers a contrast that I think is helpful to have in our heads, because that contrast, as you probably noticed, is missing when you read Green or what was the other one? Kushner, right? Larry Kushner, not Harold. Right? That Steinberg makes a very big deal, right? He devotes two sections, right? One to the traditionalist and the other to the modernist, right? And and neither Kushner nor Green is going to cop, right, to any kind of a conflict, right? It's no longer a chasm, right? And I think that's something very important to understand, both because many of us, right, in this room, really inherited that sort of modernist traditionalist bifurcation in religion, right? It was an either or. Right?
What are you saying? What do you mean by that?
Sandy, did you have a chance to look at the Milton Steinberg piece?
Yes, I did.
Okay, great. So he says, right? Let's see. He says, if you have it in front of you, it's this is page 23. Torah, the bond uniting religious Jews, is also the theme of their most fundamental disagreement, that the continental divide, as it were, at which traditionalists and modernists begin their divergence, right? And the idea is that either Torah is from Sinai, right? And the whole thing is absolutely true and you can't change it, right? Or it's not, right? And Torah is just like any other phenomenon of human culture, right? That it evolves over time, right? And that it was written by people at various stages, that there are a variety of textual traditions that came down, and a redactor stitched them together, right, into what we have as Torah, right, as the 5 books of Moses, right, and that sort of contrast between traditionalist and modernist, right, is often where many of us today sort of stop the conversation about religion, right? Either it's all true, right? Or, and then you have to kind of say, you have to go through the kind of the exercise that Steinberg goes through, right? Of having to say, well, where is God in all of this, right? And the modernist, he says, oh, God is in the impulse behind all of this creativity, right? And it's the animating force, but having to go through that level of apologetics, right, is not always so helpful. And so you'll notice, right, that Kushner and Green, who are contemporaries, right, both popularizers of Kabbalah, right, of mysticism and of Hasidic texts. Kushner more explicitly in the Reform tradition, and Green explicitly being bothered by the existence of denominational groupings that obscure, that to his mind sort of obscure what unites liberal Judaism. And he's not a big fan of denominations art. But that for those two guys, right, there is no, they don't deny that there are traditionalists and modernists, right? They just would deny that that's a helpful way of conceiving of beginning of trying to understand how we would approach Torah, right? For them, it's much more, this is what the tradition does, and we are fully part of that tradition. And that the tradition was always, simultaneously traditionalist and modernist at the same time. So you could call that postmodern. You could call it, as art sometimes calls it, post-critical. Right? And but anyways, but that's why I gave you Steinberg, because I thought it was important to address in a way that both Art and Kushner don't, right? That this dichotomy, this either or thinking that Steinberg displays, right, is very often how people who are beginning to take this tradition more seriously, that's often how we approach it, right? And I want to encourage us to approach it much more from the Kushnerian, Greenian way, right? Of seeing ourselves as part of the tradition rather than as someone who sort of compartmentalizes the tradition and puts it over there. And sort of picks and chooses based on what we like and what we don't like. Go ahead, Lori. Oh, no, okay. All right. So other thoughts about Steinberg. What else did you learn from him?
I didn't read it.
Okay, that's fine. Anybody?
Wasn't able to read it yet, but now I know how.
Now you know how. Okay, great. Yeah. All right. So we can delay the discussion of it until next week, and this way you'll know sort of the now you sort of have the context for why I'm giving you these particular pieces, and we can look at the discussion next week. What I would recommend when we're looking at these things, what I would recommend, if you have the capacity, right, I would encourage you to find a partner to read with, and it can be that you read it to yourself and then discuss it, coming up with questions. If you have the time, this is called Chavruta study, and what it does is it gives you an opportunity to really learn the text by struggling with it a little bit and with a partner, right? So it's not just a passive experience, but sort of saying, why does he put it this way? What does he mean? I disagree with him. Or in the case of Kushner versus Green, right? Or actually, this is actually between Steinberg and Green, right? Steinberg says, what does the word Torah come from? Right? It comes from, and this is on page 21.
I don't
Right.
have that. Sorry, I
That's
don't
okay.
have these pages somehow. I don't know why.
Where
Okay.
does Torah come from?
Sorry, go
That's
on.
okay. The word Torah, right, it derives, and I've said this, I think, already in the Hebrew lesson, right? It derives from a verb meaning guiding or teaching or instruction, right? But Art says that the word derives from a Hebrew root that also means to shoot or reach the mark,
Mhm.
right?
I found that very interesting.
Yes, right? Very interesting, right? And so a conversation between Chavruta partners might be, okay, well, is one denying, is Art, by mentioning this one, denying that it also means that it comes from the word instruct, or does he have a different conception of what Torah is, right? And I didn't, before I chose these passages, I didn't know that they fit together that way, right? But this is sort of part of what we do as Jews in terms of reading, right? Is to push and prod and stick together, right? And see how do they fit, Do they not fit, right? Do we like one better? Do they work? Do we get a better sense of it when we put them all together? And just to sort of point out, right, is that when we think about the word het, right, the word het in Hebrew is the word for sin, right? And it's very often explained across a whole range of Jewish traditions, right? That it's not sin necessarily in the way that we think of sin in popular parlance, right? Of sort of a Christian, sin equals death, right? But more, right, that you missed the mark, right? That you shot an arrow and you didn't hit the target, right? So that when Larry Kushner says, and this is on page 124, right, that the Torah, he says, right, places demands on human behavior. To ignore these demands is more than abdicating an existential responsibility. It constitutes sin. Right? So if you don't follow Torah, right, you are missing the mark. And if you do follow Torah, right, then you are hitting the mark.
Just to go back to what you said before, is one of them saying that the other's wrong? I didn't read it that way.
Right.
Read it
I didn't either. So how did you read
I
it?
read it as an enhancement that this older, more traditionalist person said, this is the definition, this is the word. And then, just like we do in lots of other fields and in secular conversation, well, now that you think about it, it's also this.
Right.
And that there are other ways to interpret,
right,
to study, to learn, to teach, to whatever.
Exactly. One of the worst, things to happen to religion, right, was that it encountered modernism, right? This idea that everything can be scientific, right? And so scholarship in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, right? And it began to change in the 60s, right? Decided to approach everything like a science, right? So everything had to be precise, just like Lori is saying, right? We can't let the study of religion have any less rigor, right, and validity than the study of biology, right? And so we need to declare that this things are this, right? Already by the 60s and 70s, and modernism is not looking so hot, right? In terms of that, we begin to get a little bit fuzzier again.
In defense of science, however.
Oh, I'm not. This is not.
No, just a minute.
Yeah.
That it's not that. For one, anyone who's tried to write a dissertation is told repeatedly, there is not one way to look at it. You have to solve your problem. You have to come at your data from multiple different angles and make it fit.
Right. And just to make it clear, I'm not making any sort of. I'm not trying to say anything bad about science. Right?
No. I was being a little bit sarcastic with that, but it's there's the old view of science and the modern view of science as well.
Of course, and this sort of old form is called scientist, right? Scientistic thinking, right? That the study of all human endeavor, right, should all be like science, right? As Lori is pointing out, science is always quote unquote like science in the kind of exaggerated caricature like way that Lori just said, right? This is this, right? And it just
Science isn't that anymore.
Well, so I think that the great scientists, no great scientist of any age, conceived of science that way.
Yeah.
I did have to put a gag in my mouth when I was listening to a Chabad lecture on the science of redemption, and how let's just say there was a difference of opinion in how things were defined as scientific.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Go ahead, Helen.
I wanted to say it reminds me of when I read years ago that they had a scientifically discovered how the Red Sea opened, and you know, there was all this science about the Passover story.
Right.
And it was actually, you know, interesting to me, but it felt like we're trying so hard.
Yeah, I mean, that's a different order of, that's not the kind of science that I was talking about, but it is another phenomenon, right? Along the lines of creationist science, right? You know, proving
Right.
that, you know, the flood actually
These
happened the way it happened, whatever,
Yes.
you know, it's, and that's another really important thing that Art brings up explicitly, right? That Steinberg wouldn't deny, I don't think, but Steinberg is really wants to emphasize the discontinuity, right, between the traditionalists and the modernists, and Art is much more concerned about establishing the continuity, right, between our ancestors and us, right? That we're all part of this longer tradition, right?
Right.
And one thing that's very clear about Judaism, at least sort of rabbinic Judaism, I can't speak for Messianic, but in rabbinic Judaism, right, literalism is a way of reading the Torah, right? Right? It's not against the rules to read it literally, but by and large, a literal reading of the Torah is just the beginning, right? And generally it's very often the least interesting, right? When it's read literally as opposed to contextually, if that makes sense. And it's often completely wrong, right, if you read it without context, right?
There was it's dated now, but what I considered a very interesting and important piece written by William Sloane Coffin in the 90s. And it was entitled, "To Take the Bible Seriously, You Can't Take It Literally."
Right.
Yes.
And he in that one is coming from a Christian perspective.
Right.
Right. And in Christianity, literal readings of the Bible are often given, you know, real emphasis, especially in Protestant, in the Protestant world, right, where the whole idea was that the believer should have direct access to Scripture and doesn't need this mountain of commentary, right, to understand what it
The
means.
context in which he wrote this was what was then a much more rising field of the right versus wrong of homosexuality.
Right.
And he talked about that, and he said, look, if you take the Bible literally and you're reading about kashrut, then no Jew should ever touch a football made out of pigskin.
Right.
Well, that's not what we're talking about, he says, and he goes on, and it was at the time very eye-opening.
Yeah, right.
I still
And
have it.
I'm
If anybody,
sure it's
if
eye-opening
anybody
now.
wants
Actually, if you can lay hands on it, Lori,
I have it. I have it. I'll send
I
it
would
to
love
you.
it. That would be great. I would love to see it. I find that these types of articles and books never kind of grow old, because they, even though, you know, perhaps the burning question of the moment has passed somewhat, the substance of the literal versus not only, it's not that literal reading is against the rules, right? It's just that it's not given pride of place, right? And
William Sloane Coffin was brilliant. And he was on the side of the angels.
Yeah.
on many things.
Yeah, no, he was a really important figure. So when we read Torah, right, it's important to allow ourselves to read contextually, right, and to let the text, sort of take us places where we might not think we would go with it, right? And that's sort of the point of midrash, which we will address in another session, right? But to remember that the rabbis will allow verses of Torah to mean things that are diametrically opposed to the literal meaning of the text, and they will never deny the meaning of the literal, right? It's like what Lori said, right? It adds another dimension. And so this tradition that every piece of Torah has 70 faces, right? Because we can always find another way of reading. We can always find another perspective that will gain us insight, that will provide us with a new lens. All right. Go ahead, Helen.
For our Hillel book group, we're reading Zachor. Did you read that?
I have actually never read that, which is
Well,
one of
it's
those.
very
It's sort of
tough
like
to-
it's sort of like the English professor who's never read Hamlet kind of thing.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm finding it very tough, but it talks so much. I hadn't thought about this, about rabbis, rabbinic comments and all are not history. They're interpretation. They're not dealing with the history. And I hadn't thought of that. I don't know, that whole idea where they ignore what's going on around them, but are focused on what they find in the Torah, going back in memory or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting way of looking
Yeah.
at it.
Yes.
And I'm hoping someone understands it better than I do Sunday night.
Well, I mean, I actually do. I was actually thinking of reading it and joining the group, but then someone here at CCB wanted to join the group, so I gave her my copy. So
Oh,
yeah, so
What book is that?
I'll try to have a look. I'm sorry.
What book are you mentioning?
Zachor, the book it's the 1 million one book
yeah.
title for this coming weekend. But no, that's a great point, Helen.
Yeah.
All right. So, and then when we look at Kushner, right, next week, you'll see that he goes all mystical, right? And that's his tendency, is to go into but it is very important to understand, right, that Jewish mysticism, by and large, right, is just another face of Torah study.
Mm.
Right? It's almost always textually based. Right? Other forms of mysticism can be very contemplation based, right? So on and so forth. And that brings me back to Steinberg, right? Who says in the other reason I gave you Steinberg, right, was as a contrast to Heschel, right? Heschel says, right, Judaism is not a religion of space, it is a religion of time, right? Steinberg certainly agrees with Heschel that Judaism is not a religion of space, right? For much the same reason, right? We're wandering around all the time. We don't have time to, it doesn't make sense for us to sit down. And anyway, really, our religion is about a book, right? We're really a religion of text. And again, I don't think that Steinberg is right and Heschel is wrong, or that Heschel is right and Steinberg is wrong, but I do think that they are illuminating different aspects of the tradition. All right, so So who in this Zoom room who lives at CCB wants me to make them a paper copy of these? Okay, so my.
Or no, I'm good. I'm good.
You're good, okay.
Yeah.
Anne, okay, I'll make one for you. Sandy, do you want me to make you a copy? Or
You can. That would be nice.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna make 3 copies. Thank you.
I want one.
Good, Ellen. Right. I'm gonna make one.
Are you gonna put it on the mailbox?
I'll put them in your box. Yeah.
In the mailbox outside the door?
No, I'll put them in the box. Actually, yours I can put in. Yeah, I'll bring them by the door. Yeah, that's fine.
Can you make one for me?
Yes, I said yes, I will.
I apparently didn't get the material.
That's so weird, Ellen.
Yeah, because it's completely foreign to me.
It's, Lori had the same problem that she got the note that I sent, but not the attachment.
I didn't get a note either.
Okay, I sent it last week. Did you get the one today? Did you get my
I
email?
have the diagram, but that's it.
Okay. All right. Well,
Can you put one in my mailbox?
yes, Ellen, I will.
Thank you.
How are you, Valerie?
I'm good. I'm so sorry. I was off today and I meant to join you guys and had to do an errand and I totally forgot. And
Not a problem. Not a problem. I think the spring fever is making things very
Yes,
making things very
I
very
know.
yeah.
I think it's the wind going through my brain.
Maybe that's what it is.
Rabbi Jim, last time you'll make me a copy?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Oh
I
my
will.
God.
I will, Ellen. Yes. Okay. So let me. So I will now. I want to. And thank you, Lori. I will send out. Copies of the article that Lori just sent me. Excuse me.
And the other texts that you've been talking
And
about,
I'll resend those to you, Ellen.
that'd be great.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
hopefully you'll get them. And Mallory, I've added you to the email.
Oh, good.
And so you'll get some of these as well.
Okay, great.
So before we end, I want to show you the other thing that I sent you, which is and the phone keeps ringing in here. And since it's not my office, I can't answer the phone and tell them to go away.
Oh.
All right, so what I've sent you is two sets of blessings.
Okay.
And one of them is Orthodox, and the other is from the conservative movement. I'm not making any value judgments about which one you should prefer, but I thought it would be interesting for you to see both. And because, as with any two endeavors, and actually with any two prayer books, you're going to see differences. So don't think that all conservative Jews think this and all Orthodox Jews think that. But it is true that theology in Judaism is very often expressed in prayer books. So where do we understand? Obviously there are books of theology, of Jewish theology, but by and large, right, over the years, theology comes in stories and prayers more than in sort of science, prose, organized theologies, or how do they call it in Christianity? I forget the term. Great, thanks, Ken. All right, great. So you see here, right? This was the one, and the good thing about the conservative movements one is that it has transliteration for a lot of these. So if Hebrew is a challenge, the conservative movement one will have them in English letters, so we'll make it a little bit. But you can see here, right? I'll make this bigger on the screen. What happened to my, there it is. All right. So you can see, right, before eating food other than bread or matzah, but it's made from these various types of grain, right? We say borei mine mizonot. Right? And you don't have to write this down. This is, I'll make a copy of this for the same people I'm making a copy for here.
Jim, why the specificity?
I'm sorry?
Why the specificity in the brachot?
It's very interesting. I think that it's a this is not just in this area, right? This is this I think is a manifestation of sort of a basic Jewish concern with making distinctions, right? It's very, very important in sort of the Jewish tradition of separating things, right? We have a whole,
can't like make up your own blessings.
well, that's what's interesting, is that yes, you are always welcome, according to the tradition, to make up your own prayers at any time, right? And you can offer blessings to people all the time, like may you be blessed, right? But those types of things usually begin with phrases like Misha Beirach, right? May the one who blessed our ancestors also bless us, right? We can do anything we want with a Misha Beirach, right? Or they'll start Ribono Shel Olam, right? Master of all universes. Please do this and that and the other thing, right? But generally, we restrict the development of new blessings that use this formula, the Baruch Atah formula. We don't tend to make new ones, right?
So if somebody wants to say a blessing over something other than bread made from 5 species of grains, I mean, I envision a situation where you get in an argument at the table as to what the ingredients are.
Oh, to be sure, you will see people, right, for whom this matter of distinction is of utmost importance. There will be arguments around the table. What is the appropriate blessing for this? The thing you have to remember is that these arguments are perceived as being b'shem shemayim, right? They are in the name of heaven, right? They are not arguments for people to one up one another or to prove how dumb another person is, right? It's about getting to the truth.
Got it.
Right? What's really important. And so someone with less of an attachment to this, like very precision oriented, make sure you're saying the right thing, right? You can be looser about it. You can decide what is the blessing that really works for you, right? It's
So
nice.
if somebody has a loaf of bread on the table,
Right.
and you want to say a blessing,
Right.
I would not feel comfortable asking the host what the ingredients of the loaf of bread are.
Well, if it's bread, if it's actually bread, then it doesn't matter. It's
Okay, so that's a bad example, but
no, it's
you get my point.
Right. And again, you don't need to, as a general rule, in an observant household, if you go to an observant household and you want to make a blessing, you can ask, is this mazonos? And the person will be very happy to tell you, and she'll be extremely impressed that you even know what that is, right?
Well,
And it's not seen. I don't imagine it would be seen as rude. Or if it's not an observant household, then it's not any of their business. You just say whatever blessing makes sense to you. And you wanted to say something.
I did. I kind of tongue in cheek, but in studying Talmud and studying all of this, they didn't have the internet, television, radio, and they had more time on their hands. My tongue in cheek comment. So they just went on and on and on. They were sitting around. They had to fill up their time. And
Yeah.
they argued endlessly
Right.
about everything.
Well, I mean, again, right. They absolutely did. Right. And it was their, Talmudic debate was their sports, their bridge, right? Their, they didn't turn on the television. They didn't turn on the television on Sundays, right? And watch American football from 11 in the morning until 11 at night, right? They studied Torah and argued about Torah.
And the women were taking care of the children in the household.
And cooking.
Sandy, you are
And it's also
amazing.
it's also why when the Jews came to New York City and enrolled in the university, they excelled, because during the Dark Ages they were studying Torah and not out there putzing around in the ground.
Right. And that's still the case today, right? That the emphasis on traditional Talmud Torah, right? Traditional in Orthodox circles, right, is among the reasons why you will find many Jews, men, but increasingly now, Sandy, women, right, who never went to a traditional college, right, or university. From a secular perspective, they only have like an elementary or a high school education, but they are absolutely brilliant, right? Their cognitive capacity is unbelievable, and so the traditional curriculum, such as it is it really hones a person's brain. Now, so
Bye-bye. I have to go
see
to my
you
next.
later, Ann. All right, so what you'll see as you go through, this is the one about the food, if it's not bread, right? Because as soon as you've eaten bread, as soon as you say hamotzi, that means that you are eating a meal, and you need to say afterwards, supposedly, the full Birkat Hamazon, right? If you just have some snacks, right? There's a different blessing you say here, right? The blessing after food. And let me just pull it up, move it over for you. You can see it, right? The blessing after food, right? And there's again some categories here, and you say a little blessing, and then that's it, right? And then you could also just say this, right? Sometimes it's just this little thing, right? So all the rules are there. If you care to learn them, they're all there. Go for it. Have fun. Right now,
here's one question. The Borei Pri Hagafen is for wine or grape juice, and I know there are arguments that you shouldn't really use grape juice. What about grapes? They are Pri Hagafen.
Yep, they're Pri Hagafen. Right.
But apparently you don't use. That's not the blessing you use. If you're eating the fruit of grapes.
Yeah, I don't know which. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't remember.
That's all right.
Oh, here it is. Pri Ha'etz. Yeah, the actual grapes, right? The actual grapes are considered to grow on trees.
That makes no sense.
That's not true.
Absolutely no sense. I mean, I know you didn't make the rule.
Right. I don't make the rules, and I don't even know the rules because this level of specificity is just not meaningful to me. But I wanted to give you the exposure to it, because if this is a way that would be meaningful, it's the point. Remember that the point here is not about getting it right. Right. The point here is about establishing a spiritual practice, right, that will endow eating with a level of holiness that perhaps it didn't have previously.
Right? No, I appreciate that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
This came up after Passover. The question was, somebody said that after Passover's over, what do you do with the leftover matzah?
Hmm.
And somebody else said, you can't eat it. And I never heard that before.
I never heard it. I never heard that either. What I, one custom that I know, right, from one of my rabbis is that he grew up in a family that was so strict that they couldn't even eat wet matzah during Passover because it was too close to, God forbid it, re-sprout. There's no possible way for that to happen, right? But so matzah brai was something
Yes.
that you made matzah brai after Passover to get rid of all the leftover matzahs.
Oh, really?
That was what he said. Now,
Huh.
so that's not a tradition I'm familiar with, Ellen, again, that practice, right, can be understood again, right, as another one of these manifestations about distinctions, right? If you make something davka for Passover, right? Hold on, excuse me 1 second. Hey Joe, what's up? I can in about 20 minutes. Is that? Oh. Yes, that would be great. Great. Okay. So, if he's going to be around in 20 minutes, I can come up then. I'll come up in 20 minutes, but if he can't wait, I'm happy just to, if you could just leave me his phone number, then I can, yeah. No, it just tells me I have the wrong password.
Oh, poor guy.
I'm on my personal laptop. Yeah. Perfect. Great. Awesome. Thanks, Joe. Yeah. Bye bye.
I may call J2S in New York and just ask for an opinion there.
Yes. Good idea. All right. So after these, right, there's a whole bunch of different blessings on mitzvahs, right?
Hang on a sec. Let's see. Okay.
Wow.
I would just want to ask something, Rabbi Jim.
Yeah.
I really thank you for all the specificity and explaining that. And
it's well past time for us to do Hebrew, isn't it?
I know, but that's okay. You may have mentioned this and I didn't quite catch it, but in my shtisel learning of Hebrew, it seems like there's some simple blessing they say every time they eat or drink anything. Is there like one simple one that's good for everything that I missed in here?
That is a good question. I again, since this is not part of my mimetic tradition, meaning I didn't grow up in a family where people just did this all the time. I don't know.
Okay.
The one, I think my guess is that the actors, that since all of the blessings begin with Baruch Atah, so on and so on, they are probably just varying the final word of the blessing.
Oh yeah, probably.
Right? To match what it is that they're doing. Since I haven't seen it, I can't verify that one way or the other.
Thank you.
So what I would say, right, is that if you're eating a meal with bread, you can always say Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. That takes care of everything. If as with a kiddush, you drink the wine earlier than the bread, then say Borei Pri Hagafen, drink some wine, and then say Hamotzi and eat your meal. If you're not eating bread, right, or matzah, or something that mimics those things, right, then you can choose the one that's here on this page.
Thank you.
All right. But the easiest thing to do is just to always have a little bit of bread, a little bit of matzah, say hamotzi, and you're covered, and you've done it right. If being right is important, then that's what you should do. And if being right is not important, then you can say hamotzi even though you're not eating bread, and that's completely up to you, right? Because like somebody who's gluten intolerant, right, who comes to Kiddush and is part of the communal saying of hamotzi, from my way of reading it, is included, even though she might not actually eat the challah. Now, if she herself, if it's important for her, right, she may say shahakol in order to be what the word is in Yiddish inflected Hebrew is yotze. You want to be yotze, meaning you want to have fulfilled your obligation to say a blessing over your food, right?
Yotze.
Which is I actually like it, meaning you've gone out. You're out from under your obligation. Right?
I like that.
Yeah.
All right, so we can get. What I would do is I didn't want to spend too much time on the blessings. They're really for your delectation, and so enjoy and feel free to, as I said, to compare and contrast the conservative versus the Orthodox, or I should really say, the Koren versus Sim Shalom, and see, and you can probably tell a little bit about the orientation of the two movements based on which blessings are included, what the instructions are regarding the blessings, and so on and so forth. All right.
So we are going out to a Shabbat dinner tonight for the first time in 14 months.
Wow.
And I feel some special blessing is in order.
Yeah. I think that a shechianu
that's what
is always in order,
yes.
right?
Absolutely.
But actually, there is another one, which let me see if I can find it here.
Impress the heck out of my hosts.
Yes, although you might scare them also.
Well, that too.
I think there's, if I'm remembering correctly, if you don't see a person for a year, and then you see them.
Oh, well, we've seen them. We haven't been in their house.
Oh, okay. Because if you haven't seen them, then you can say Mechaye Hametim, right? who brings life to the dead.
No. That's rude.
No, I mean it's not rude. It's like this, like, oh my God, I thought I would never see you again.
No,
here I am seeing you.
Is that one here?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't see it.
Okay.
I don't see it. Here, this is one. I like this. Saying thank God for a miracle, right? That we get to.
That's a good
one.
For what?
Yeah.
Thank God for the miracle, right?
Yes.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa li nes b'makom hazeh. Right? It's a miracle I get to see you again. Right? Let's see here. That was all that I had in this one.
Yeah.
So there may be the conservative movement one might have something about seeing someone after such a long time. I don't know. All right. So questions about. I'm going to stop this share, and we will move to the Hebrew questions. Any specific
Shabbat
questions?
shalom, everyone.
Good Shabbos.
Yes,
Story.
Shabbat shalom.
All right.
Pronounce the words on page. Do you have the book with you?
I don't have the book, so someone will have to read them for me.
I have,
Go ahead, Helen.
this is, I wasn't able, it's been a crazy week. I haven't done Hebrew, but I have two questions for you. One is I also did not get the articles sent, that email.
It's so weird.
And I've just looked through all my emails from you, and
Right.
I have today's with the blessing.
Okay, so there was something weird going on with that email
Yeah,
because
so if you could send it, I'd appreciate it.
I will resend it. I will resend
Okay.
it. Absolutely.
And the next question is, I was thinking of buying Arthur Green's book, wondering if for someone like me that would be helpful, and just didn't know if you had any advice.
Which one? The Book of Words.
These are the words, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. These are, yeah, I mean, I think it's a great resource. It's not the only book like that,
Right.
obviously. But it's what I like about it is it's a very art kind of thing. Like art is very consistent. I'm sure that his views have changed over the last 20 years about some of these things, but
Oh,
but his basic orientation is the same. So I like it. And also it's just like, these are the words you hear.
yeah.
And it's very helpful, I think, to have a clear presentation of what those words are.
Okay, I thought so too,
Yeah.
but I was wondering on your opinion, but I'm gonna go now walk my crazy dog, but thank you.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Bye.
All right, Mayim, questions about Hebrew?
I have a question.
Hold on one second, Ellen, because Ellen, I can come to you and address your questions. So I could, but I want to make sure that I'm addressing questions from Kent and Mayim.
Okay, I'm still on the participle chapter 8, but it's making more sense. And I could actually, translate some of these things. So I'm
Actually that word yotze, right, is a participle. You may recognize it as such, right?
And I just want to say I will be away next week, so I'll have to miss class. So
and it'll be on YouTube. You can look at it from.
Okay, and I'll just keep studying and practicing.
Perfect.
All right, I'll say goodbye then, and see you all in 2 weeks. Thank you. I do still want to get that book from you.
Maybe I have it here. I will do my best to remember to swing by Cohen.
Well, you know what? I'm going away on Monday for a week. So I wrote you a note. I'll try to remember to remind you like in 2 weeks or something like that.
All right. Well, I'll keep it in this building. I won't bring it home. That's fine.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Bye-bye, Mallory. Nice to see you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Kent, are you there? I guess she's not. Okay. Sounds good, Ellen. So I'll come down.
I'm here.
Oh, good. Do you have any questions about the Hebrew?
No questions.
Sounds good. Then let's reconvene. We'll reconvene next week. And I remembered all the other books, but not the Hebrew book today. But I'm going to bring it back to Brookline because I'm now going to be in Brookline most of the week. So. Which is exciting. All right, sounds good. All right, it'd be great to see you from Virginia, Mallory.
I will try.
Sounds good.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Sounds good.
Bye.
All right. Thanks, Ken. And
We'll see you tonight.
I'll see you tonight. Perfect. Ellen,
Okay,
Ellen, I'm going to come. Are you in your room?
Yeah, you're gonna come to my room?
I'll come by your room. Just to look at those. Or do you want to? Because otherwise I can't see them. You know what I mean?
You want to come to my room?
Or we can meet in the great room if you want.
I'm meeting Dan at 3:30. So you want to meet in the great room now?
Yeah, we can meet in the great room right now. We can meet in the great room.
Give me 10 minutes to get there.
Sounds good.